Welcome to another episode of 9 to 5 Mac Weekly, where my iMac still isn't shipped. I'm your host, Miles Somerville, and while a bunch of M1 iMac and iPad reviews are hitting the streets this week, we're already looking ahead at what's next. And Mark Gurman from Bloomberg's got a lot to say about it, so let's dive in and talk about what's next with the next wave of Apple Silicon Macs. At this point in time, we've got M1 inside of the Mac Mini, the 13-inch MacBook Pro and Air, and then the new 24-inch iMac. And all of those devices are great, but we know that there should be higher-end Apple Silicon options out there for true professional workflows. So according to Bloomberg, that could be coming as soon as this summer, starting with new MacBook Pros. We learned earlier this year that new MacBook Pros would be coming, but now we've got more specifics on what we can expect from these devices, as well as info on even more MacBooks. So according to Bloomberg, redesigned high-end MacBook Pros are coming in the early summertime. We've got the code names J314 and J316, so you can tell that those last two digits are referencing the screen size. And when the 16-inch MacBook Pro dropped in 2019, we all knew that a 14-inch model would be coming at some point, and we're getting even closer. 13-inch MacBook Pro users have been waiting for that compact workhorse upgrade for years now, and it's almost here. Like we discussed in the last MacBook Pro rumor video, these laptops will be redesigned with a magnetic MagSafe charger and more ports, including an HDMI port and an SD card slot. And this is something that professionals have been begging for since the MacBooks were revamped in 2016. And when this rumor initially hit earlier this year, I thought the HDMI part of it didn't make a whole lot of sense because Thunderbolt can pretty much do anything HDMI can. But when thinking about it, I think that Apple could be putting an HDMI 2.1 port on the MacBook Pros, which means they could in theory support outputting to an 8K display or a 4K 144 Hz panel or something along those lines. I feel like that has to be the case because otherwise, why do it? These are meant to be their true pro machines, so having a feature like that would be very appealing and actually useful for professionals. And hopefully the SD card slot will support high-speed UHS 2 cards or something along those lines. But what exactly can we expect from these new MacBooks in terms of power? Well, Bloomberg reported that Apple's developing two new custom chips, codenamed JC Chop and JC Die. Interesting names. But both of these will include 8 high-performance cores and 2 energy-efficient cores, so we're looking at a 10-core CPU for both, but the difference will be in the GPU power. One will be offered with a 16-core GPU, and the other will come with a 32-core GPU. So that already sounds like it's going to be a significantly more powerful machine, especially in terms of graphical power. The M1 is already pretty dang good for what it is, and that gets me even more amped for M2 or M1X, whatever it's going to be called. Still not sure yet. Another interesting detail is that these new processors will come with up to 64 gigs of memory, which is a pretty big step up from 16 gigabytes on M1. And RAM management is one of the more notable issues with the M1 platform, so being able to get that high RAM count for larger workflows will be nice to take advantage of. And it'll also be interesting to see how much RAM will be specifically available for the MacBook Pros, but given the fact that the current Intel 16-inch supports up to 64 gigs, I think it's safe to say that the 14 and the 16 M2 machines will get the same treatment. But like I said earlier, it looks like we'll be getting even more MacBook models. The Bloomberg report also states that these high-end MacBook Pros will be followed up by a new MacBook Air and lower-end MacBook Pro. My guess is that these laptops will come with a redesign and multiple color options just like the new iMac. I think these lower-end MacBooks are going to be a late 2021 or early 22 release if they end up being a thing, because there's so much more Apple stuff that's going to drop in terms of hardware this year, including new versions of all their desktops. This report also talks about new high-performance Mac desktops coming later this year. Apple's working on a new Apple Silicon-based iMac, Mac Pro, and yes, the Mac Mini. We already know that a revamped version of the 27-inch iMac will be coming sometime this year, but the report also states what we already assumed, which is that this new larger iMac will be powered by a higher-end Apple CPU, and more than likely redesigned. So for everyone who's meh on the 24-inch iMac, this will likely be the machine to get your interest. This will likely be a 30 or 32-inch iMac with an even higher resolution display, probably 5.5 or 6K, which is going to be bananas. I can't wait to see how this machine is going to look in person. We've got even more specifics on what the next Mac Mini is going to look like as well. Apple still sells the i5 and i7 Mac Mini, so this next model is going to be geared to replace those. Just like the Mac Minis of the past, this model is expected to be powered by the same CPU that's going to be found in the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros and come with 4 Thunderbolt ports instead of 2 like it has now. And this is the machine I've been craving ever since we got the M1 Mini. The current Intel Gen Minis are great for what they are, but this model is shaping up to finally be the Mac Mini with no real compromises. We'll have the I/O, the CPU, and the GPU power we need to get work done. So that's really exciting. We don't have word on when this Mac Mini will launch, but fingers crossed that it happens sometime this year. And then of course, there's the Mac Pro. There's been talk in the past 6 months or so of a new Intel-based and Apple Silicon-based Mac Pro coming out sometime this year and in 2022. The Bloomberg report doesn't offer much as far as specifics, but it looks like by 2022, we'll have a new Apple Silicon-based Mac Pro, and apparently this desktop will come with processor options that are either twice or 4 times as powerful as the yet-to-be revealed MacBook Pros, and I can't even comprehend what that looks like in terms of performance at the moment. But it sounds like this will be one of the most powerful computers you can buy, period. And I'm eager to see what it ends up looking like visually as well. But like I said, that's a ways off. Everything coming out of this article sounds pretty dang good to me, and it seems like not only Apple's going to be on track as far as completing this transition to Apple Silicon by 2022, like they said, but it sounds like Apple's also going to have a product for every customer. If you want the super high performance MacBook Pro but in a smaller form factor, you're going to be able to get that with the 14-inch MacBook Pro. If you want the super high performance Mac Mini, you're going to be able to get that as well. There's going to be a high performance iMac on the way with a larger screen. Apple's really killing it so far. Of course, we haven't seen these computers in the flesh yet in any capacity, but if what we're hearing on paper is to be true, then I think these are going to be pretty awesome machines. Everyone's really hating on the 24-inch iMac's white bezels, but I really think that the higher-end, larger iMac is going to get rid of that completely. We're going to have traditional black bezels. It's going to be a more professional-looking computer. And everyone that's upset about the Mac Mini only having 2 Thunderbolt ports, I think the next one, based on this report, is surely going to solve that problem and give you the awesome graphic and CPU performance that you've always been craving out of the Mac Mini. And then these new rumored MacBooks that are potentially coming later this year or in 2022, those sound like really good options for people who just want to dip their toe into the Apple ecosystem without spending $1,000, $1,100, $1,500 on a computer. But what are you guys' thoughts on these products? Are you interested in anything you're hearing about these new MacBook Pros, the new MacBook Mini? Let us know in the comments down below. Reasonable Cash says, referring to the rumored MacBook Air, if they give the thing a white bezel and keyboard, I'll be holding on to my current MacBook Pro until they get over whatever lunacy has currently hold on their design team. Yeah, I mean, it really is a hit or miss as far as the design. A lot of people prefer the black bezels and black keys, but I think it's pretty likely that this new low-end MacBook is going to have that design as well, so I think you better cozy up to it a little bit. But if you're using a MacBook Pro, that's probably not the product for you anyway, and you should probably be looking towards either the low-end M1 MacBook Pro or the new 14-inch MacBook Pro that's on the way. Dark Envy, referring to the new MacBook Pro, says previous rumors stated that there will be a 12-core CPU with 8 high performance and 4 energy efficient cores. Not going to complain if it's the 10-core design, but I'm wondering how battery will be though with only 2 energy efficient cores. The battery life is definitely something I've been wanting from the M1 models. I think battery life is still going to be pretty good. It may not be as efficient as the M1 models we have right now, but I think we could at least expect 15 to 16 hours of battery life. Me too. I've personally really been loving the battery life on the MacBook Air. I didn't get the MacBook Air until a few months ago, and so I didn't experience how awesome the battery life is on M1 laptops, but it's great, and I think we should at least get a huge percentage of that battery performance in these new MacBook Pros. That's kind of like half the point of Apple Silicon, to be super efficient. Will says, I hope that the MacBook doesn't lose a USB-C port to gain space for MagSafe and or HDMI. I think there's still going to be at least 3 Thunderbolt ports on these new MacBooks. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of ridiculous. I think we're just going to have in total more ports on these machines than we've had, you know, in 5+ years. So that'll be interesting to see having a bunch of ports on a new Apple product. It'll kind of feel weird. And I think Apple is plenty capable of doing it. And personally, I'm fine giving up 1 Thunderbolt port for the sake of MagSafe. HDMI, I'm kind of impartial on that, but MagSafe has always been cool. I loved it on the original MacBook Pros, and so I'm okay with giving up 1 port. But I think we still should at least have 3 Thunderbolt ports, because otherwise it's not really that much more of a pro machine as far as the I/O. Raymond says, if these rumors are true, goodbye Intel, especially if a 16 GPU core is a part of the unified memory architecture. That may be fast enough to run something serious like a AAA game. I think the M1 machines are already pretty powerful from a graphical perspective with just their 7 and 8 core GPUs. I think these are capable of running some serious titles as well, but you know, Mac OS, right? Mac OS is not exactly a gaming platform, and there have been rumors of like a Nintendo Switch-like device coming out from Apple, but I don't think the rumors on that are very true. I think whenever Apple truly decides they want to take gaming seriously, they will make it happen. But at this point, I don't think these are going to be gaming machines, even though they should be capable of it. But that's going to be about it for this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this, because like I said, we've got our M1 iMac and iPad reviews on the way, both the 11-inch and 12.9-inch iPad, as well as the base model and high-end iMac. Those videos are coming soon, so subscribe for that, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.